Imagine standing at the edge of a new frontier, a place where something utterly original is about to emerge. Think of the first time a rocket built by a private company touched the edge of space and then gently landed itself back on Earth, defying all expectations. Think of the moment an AI program began conversing with humans so fluently that it reached 100 million users in 2 months, the fastest adoption of any tech in history. These are not just improvements or updates to what existed before. They are leaps into the unknown. They are what entrepreneur Peter Thiel would call moving from zero to one. In his book Zero to One, Notes on Startups or How to Build the Future, Thiel argues that true innovation means creating something genuinely new, something fresh and strange. Going from one to N, as he puts it, is just making more of what we already have. Horizontal progress, like spreading existing ideas or copying someone else's success. But going from zero to one is vertical progress. It's doing what no one has done before, building the future from scratch. Every time a founder invents a new technology or a new way of doing things, the world goes from zero to one. The act of creation is singular, and so is the moment it happens. If you're imagining the next Mark Zuckerberg building yet another social network, Thiel's message is, think again. The next Bill Gates will not build an operating system. The next Larry Page won't make a search engine. Copying these guys isn't learning from them. The giants of the past found their unique breakthroughs. Yours will have to be unique too. Each moment, each great innovation, comes only once in the world's timeline. How do we uncover those one-of-a-kind ideas? Thiel suggests we start by asking a contrarian question. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? In other words, what great idea is out there that nobody else is working on because they don't believe in it yet? This question sounds simple, but as Thiel notes, brilliant thinking is rare, but courage is in even shorter supply than genius. It takes courage to stand up and say, I think the truth is the opposite of what everyone believes, but that is exactly where the seeds of the future lie, in those hidden truths and secrets that most people overlook. Every innovative startup begins with some kind of secret, a unique insight about how the world could be different. For example, years ago, most people thought electric cars could never replace gasoline cars. It took a few contrarian thinkers at a startup called Tesla to prove that belief wrong. Many were skeptical that ordinary people would ever let strangers stay in their homes. But Airbnb's founders had a contrarian truth that people would do this if given the right platform. And they changed the travel industry by acting on it. The courage to see a truth that others deny is the first step to building something radically new. Peter Thiel himself has a track record of betting on contrarian ideas. He co-founded PayPal when online payments were barely understood. He invested early in Facebook when social media was just a playground for kids. And he helped to start SpaceX when sending rockets to orbit was seen as a job only governments could do. His whole career is an example of definite optimism, a term he uses for the mindset that the future can be better, and we have a plan to make it so. Thiel divides people's outlook on the future into 4 categories. 2 stand out: the definite optimist and the indefinite optimist. The indefinite optimist is someone who says, sure, the future will be better, but I have no idea how. It'll just happen somehow. A lot of us fall into this trap today. We expect technology and the economy to improve our lives, but we leave the details to chance. In the business world, this attitude often leads to people just reshuffling what already exists. Think of careers in finance that move money around without creating new products, or big corporations that iterate endlessly without bold leaps. On the other hand, the definite optimist plans for a better future. They engineer it. This was the prevailing attitude in much of the 17th through mid-20th century, when people designed railroads, skyscrapers, and moon missions. Thiel argues that we need to reclaim that spirit. Instead of assuming progress will occur automatically, we should commit to a vision and work out how to get there. If the world is going to improve, we have to design and build that improvement. He even warns that a startup is no place for indefinite optimism. You can't expect your business to succeed by accident. Darwinism may be a fine theory in other contexts, but in startups, intelligent design works best, he writes. In other words, you are not a lottery ticket scratching for a lucky break. You have to intentionally create your own luck by formulating a concrete plan and pursuing a deliberate vision. This emphasis on planning goes somewhat against the grain of recent startup culture. In the aftermath of the dot-com crash of 2000, a kind of lean startup orthodoxy took hold. Don't make grand plans, just experiment and pivot. Keep expectations small. Above all, be lean and flexible, and focus only on incremental improvements. Caution became the norm. After all, grand visions were blamed for inflating the bubble in the 90s. Thiel watched that era and came away with a very different lesson. Playing it safe can be the riskiest thing. He points out that those post-bubble safe lessons have solidified into dogmas that may actually hold us back. Yes, iteration has its place, but no great company was built by accident. Thiel boldly asserts the opposite of the new dogma. It is better to risk boldness than triviality. A bad plan is better than no plan, and sales matters just as much as product. In other words, don't shy away from big visions. Have a plan for how to get there, even if it's imperfect. Having some direction is better than drifting aimlessly. And when you do build something, don't buy into the myth that a great product sells itself. Figuring out distribution and sales is as critical as the product invention. Many brilliant engineers have failed because they fell for the fallacy that marketing is dirty or unnecessary. Thiel reminds us that customers won't magically find you just because you're great. You have to reach them, convince them, perhaps even educate them about why your new thing matters. So, what kind of company does all this thinking produce? It produces a startup that looks at the status quo and says, we can completely rethink this. According to Thiel, a startup by definition is the largest group of people you can convince to unite and build a different future. It's small by necessity because it's hard to get thousands of people to agree on a crazy new vision. But it's mighty because everyone in that room believes in that vision. A startup's greatest strength is new thinking. Unlike big corporations, which often move slowly and stick to established formulas, a startup can be agile in ideas, not just in speed. Thiel likens big companies to lumbering elephants and startups to swift gazelles. The little guys can zigzag and explore where the big ones cannot. But more than agility, it's the willingness to think from scratch, from first principles, that truly sets startups apart. First principles thinking means questioning every assumption and boiling problems down to their fundamental truths. Elon Musk, for instance, famously used first principles thinking to break down the cost of rocket materials and realized SpaceX could build rockets much cheaper than established aerospace companies. That kind of fresh, independent thought is exactly what Thiel prizes. There is no formula for innovation, no textbook that can tell you how to build a billion-dollar enterprise. If such a formula existed, someone would have written it and everybody would be following it to guaranteed success. But real life isn't so simple. Instead, Thiel observes, successful people find value in unexpected places by thinking for themselves. They don't just tick boxes or copy plans from others. They ask questions nobody else is asking and relentlessly seek the answers. One such question is the business version of that earlier contrarian challenge. What valuable company is nobody building? Think of it as the entrepreneur's holy grail. If you can answer that, you're on your way to a 0-to-1 breakthrough. It means you've spotted a secret opportunity, a chance to create value and claim it with little or no competition. This brings us to one of Thiel's most provocative ideas, the value of monopoly. In most contexts, the word monopoly sounds bad. It conjures images of greedy corporations and consumer exploitation. But Thiel wants us to see a nuance here. All happy companies are different, he writes. Each one earns a monopoly by solving a unique problem. All failed companies are the same. They failed to escape competition. In other words, if you really do something better than anyone else, so much better that no one can realistically compete, you get to be in a category of your own. You've escaped the pack. And that is where enduring success lies. Why? Because if you're just one of many similar players in an industry, you're in a race to the bottom. Take a simple example. Imagine running a small restaurant in a town full of restaurants. Your menu isn't vastly different from the others. Your location is no better. How do you survive? You'll probably end up slashing prices, squeezing wages, begging for reviews, doing anything just to not lose ground. It's a miserable struggle. In economic terms, A competitive market drives profits down to zero in the long run. Everyone is too busy fighting each other to build something big or plan for the future. Now contrast that with a company like Google. Google became the undisputed leader in search engine technology, essentially a monopoly in that space for many years. With no serious competition threatening to put it out of business overnight, Google could afford to think long-term. It famously adopted the motto, "Don't be evil," and while that doubled as savvy branding, it also reflects a truth. Google had the breathing room to care about things beyond mere survival. When you have monopoly profits, you can afford to invest in ambitious projects, pay employees generously, and even ponder ethical responsibilities. Thiel points out that in business, money is either important or it's everything. For a company locked in fierce competition, money becomes everything. Margins are slim, one bad quarter could kill you, so you can't think beyond the immediate fight. But a company with a monopoly, earned through unique innovation, can treat money as just important, not everything. It has space to breathe and innovate further. Now, Thiel is not blind to the dark side of monopolies. If the world never changes, a monopolist can just extort customers and grow fat and lazy. That's the kind of monopoly regulators rightly fear. In a static world, monopoly is just about cornering a market and exploiting it. But we live in a dynamic world, and creative monopolies are a completely different beast. A creative monopoly is what you get when a company innovates its way to the top. Rather than limiting choices, it creates new choices. When Google introduced its revolutionary search algorithm, it wasn't forcing us to use search. It was giving us a tool we never had before. When Apple brought out the iPhone, it initially had no real competitors. It was one of a kind, a monopoly for a while, but it gave consumers a product far more advanced than anything previously available. Thiel says creative monopolists actually add entirely new categories of abundance to the world and act as engines for making it better. They don't just take a slice of the pie, they bake a bigger pie that benefits everyone. Of course, even creative monopolies must keep innovating. If they stagnate, they risk turning into the bad kind of monopoly. This is a tension we see today. Tech giants like Google or Facebook attain near monopoly status by doing something uniquely well. Now society pressures them. Stay innovative and fair, or be broken up. Thiel's viewpoint suggests that as long as they keep creating new value, they're mostly a force for good. But if they lapse into just protecting their turf, they'll deservedly earn society's ire. It's a critical reflection that in praising monopoly, Thiel isn't celebrating greed or complacency. He's celebrating the kind of focused innovation that lets a company deliver orders of magnitude more value than any rival. For an aspiring entrepreneur, the takeaway is, don't start out trying to compete head-on with established players. If you're planning to launch the next Facebook or another generic startup in a crowded field, think twice. Thiel's advice is to start with a small market you can dominate. Find your niche, your hidden truth, where you can be the best. It might be a weird niche. Maybe it doesn't even look like a big market at first. That's fine. Maybe even ideal. Early on, Facebook was just for Harvard students. Amazon sold only books online. Tesla's first car was a high-end electric roadster for a tiny luxury market. These companies each captured a beachhead market and built a monopoly there, even if they didn't call it that, then used that position to expand. The perfect target market for a startup is a small group of particular people served by few or no competitors, Thiel explains. Nail that, then scale up cleverly. Amazon dominated online book sales, then branched out step by step until now it sells everything. Facebook went from one campus to every college to the whole world. The path was to first dominate a specific niche and then scale to adjacent markets. At each step, the company maintains a kind of monopoly in its niche until it grows into the next one. It's like a series of controlled leaps from 0 to 1, again and again, each building on the last. This strategy ties into another Thiel concept, the last mover advantage. We often hear about first movers, those who supposedly win by being the first on the scene. Thiel says being first is not a goal in itself. What really matters is being the last major innovation in an important market. You want to be the one who makes the definitive breakthrough that others can't top, so you can enjoy years or decades of success. Google wasn't the first search engine, but it may well be the last significant one, as it so thoroughly solved search, at least for a long time, that no one could touch them. Many social networks came and went, but Facebook's thorough dominance made it the last big social network of its kind for a while. Being first to do something can help, but if someone else comes along and does it better, your head start doesn't mean much. So rather than obsessing over being first, focus on making a product 10 times better than any substitute. Build proprietary technology or networks that are hard to replicate. Then you might become that last mover who defines the market on your terms. All this talk of planning, monopolies, and contrarian thinking might make it seem like startups are cold calculations. But Thiel also emphasizes the human side, the culture and mindset that a startup needs. He coins Thiel's law: a startup messed up at its foundation cannot be fixed. It means the early decisions, picking co-founders, establishing the team, setting the initial vision, are make or break. If you choose the wrong partners or motivate people with the wrong incentives, no amount of pivoting later will fully undo that damage. On the flip side, a great founding team with unity of purpose can adapt to challenges and carry the company through anything. Thiel believes in the power of a great founder, not as a lone hero, but as a leader who sets the tone and brings out the best in others. The goal is to build a team where everyone is aligned and confident in the mission to create something new. In a well-led startup, even the interns and junior engineers feel like they are a part of a grand mission to reshape a piece of the world. That sense of purpose can be more motivating than money. After all, if you truly go from 0 to 1, the money will follow. Now let's connect these ideas to the world unfolding around us right now. We live in an age of both unprecedented innovation and mass imitation. On one hand, we see AI breakthroughs that feel like science fiction. OpenAI's ChatGPT is a perfect example. A few years ago, the idea of an AI writing code or essays was niche. Then suddenly a startup released this chatbot and millions began using it for work, study, and play. It was a leap that caught larger firms off guard, a 0 to 1 moment that has now set off an AI race. Microsoft poured billions into OpenAI, and Google, an incumbent giant, scrambled to fast-track its own AI projects. But notice, OpenAI's success also spawned countless copycats. For every genuine leap in AI, dozens of companies now slap AI in their pitch decks, hoping to ride the hype. This is a classic pattern. Real innovation sparks excitement, which leads to imitation. Thiel would likely smile at this. It proves his point that doing what's already been proven, 1 to N, is much easier than doing something new. But he'd also encourage looking beyond the hype. The next great startup might not be one of the 100th AI content generator to hit the market. It might be the one that applies AI in a way nobody else has thought of, or moves into a completely different field that's ripe for change, like biotechnology or energy. Consider Elon Musk, a figure Thiel knows well from the PayPal days. Musk's ventures are practically case studies in Thiel's principles. When Musk started SpaceX, people laughed at the idea of a private company making orbital rockets, let alone reusing them. Musk had a contrarian truth, that rockets could be made at a fraction of the cost and used multiple times against all aerospace orthodoxy. He was definitively planning for a future where humanity is interplanetary. Talk about definite optimism. Today, SpaceX not only launches rockets regularly, it has largely monopolized the market for commercial space launch, driving costs down and beating government agencies to new milestones. Musk's Tesla had a similarly bold vision, a stylish, high-performance electric car that could upend the auto industry. Rather than compete head-on with Ford or Toyota's gasoline vehicles, playing the old game, Tesla started in the then tiny market of luxury electric sports cars, dominated it, and used that platform to expand to more mass-market models. Now Tesla is the most valuable car company in the world, effectively setting the agenda for electric vehicles while the old giants scramble to adapt. These examples resonate with young, ambitious people because they show it's still possible to redefine industries. Musk is an extreme example. Not everyone will shoot rockets or build self-driving cars. But the underlying message is that even in fields that seem mature, there are secrets and opportunities to do something brand new. As Thiel points out, the fact that one person can lead multiple multi-billion-dollar companies, Zip2, PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, etc., shows that it's not just luck at play. There is a method, a mindset that can be learned and applied. Another hot area is the intersection of AI and human empowerment. Thiel's view on technology is notably pro-human. He's not interested in software that just replaces people and drives humans to irrelevance. In fact, he believes the most valuable businesses of the coming decades will be those that empower people rather than make them obsolete. Think about that in the context of AI. There's a big debate now. Will AI take all our jobs? Thiel would challenge entrepreneurs to flip that script. How can AI be used to amplify human effort so we can do things we never could before? The success of some technologies like a medical AI that helps doctors diagnose faster or an educational AI that tutors students one-on-one will likely come from working with humans, not against them. If humans and computers together can achieve dramatically better results than either alone, what new companies could you build on that principle? Thiel asks. That question is potent today. It invites a new generation of innovators to take something like AI and not just ask, how do I make money off this trend by doing what others are doing? But rather, how can I use this powerful tool to solve a problem in a way no one else has tried? The startups that answer that will have their 0 to 1 moment. Thiel's philosophy also sparks critical reflection on the broader startup ecosystem. It challenges the herd mentality. How many startups today are just chasing whatever is trendy, whether it's blockchain or AI or launching yet another social app, without a unique take? There's a kind of irony when venture capitalists all ask founders to differentiate themselves. Yet often those same investors flock to whatever sector produced the last hit. 0 to 1 reminds us that true innovation often looks odd or even crazy at first. If everybody already agrees it's a good idea, chances are many people are already doing it. The real breakthroughs initially tend to have more skeptics than cheerleaders. This means as an innovator, you have to be ready for people to call you wrong or naive. It means you might be working on something that doesn't fit into existing market categories. And that is okay. In fact, it's a sign you're potentially on the right path. The most contrarian thing of all is not to oppose the crowd, but to think for yourself, Thiel writes. Ultimately, 0 to 1 isn't just about startups. It's about a way of looking at the world. It's a call to young intellectuals, students, future entrepreneurs, anyone hungry to do something that matters, to question the obvious, to reject the idea that we're living at the peak of history with nothing new to create. If you look at today's global challenges, climate change, for example, applying Thiel's lens can be invigorating. We know we can't solve climate issues by minor tweaks alone. We likely need a 0 to 1 breakthrough in clean energy. That's why startups are racing to develop things like fusion reactors or ultra-efficient batteries. Some of those efforts will fail, maybe many, but anyone that succeeds could change the course of history. It's the kind of high-risk, high-reward innovation that Thiel encourages. Playing it safe won't get us a sustainable planet. Bold invention might. Or consider the recent pandemic. Traditional thinking gave us certain responses, but it was a novel biotechnology approach, the mRNA vaccine platform, that proved to be a game changer, a 0 to 1 leap in vaccine development that saved countless lives. Over and over, we see that while imitation and incremental progress have their place in keeping the wheels turning, it's the creative jumps that propel us forward. As we wrap up this deep dive into 0 to 1, let's return to you, the listener, perhaps a college student or an aspiring entrepreneur, wondering how you can make an impact. The ideas in this book carry an emotional weight because they ask you to believe in yourself and the possibility of a new world. Thiel essentially asks each of us, what is your secret? What do you see that others don't? And what are you going to do about it? Answering that might be uncomfortable. It requires introspection and a willingness to stand apart from the crowd. But if you find that answer, you might also find your purpose. The thrill of a startup isn't in following a recipe to get rich. It's in the almost romantic belief that you can bend the arc of the future, even if just by a little bit. It's in the struggle and joy of creating something that didn't exist before. So dare to think big. Dare to plan for decades, not just the next pivot. Embrace technology as a toolbox for building a better tomorrow, not just a way to clone yesterday's apps. Be open to collaboration. Remember that every great company was built by a team, not a lone genius, but also be willing to stand alone with your conviction when needed. 0 to 1 teaches us that every groundbreaking enterprise begins with a question no one else dared to ask. Perhaps you'll ask a question that leads you to founding the next SpaceX, or the next OpenAI, or a venture we can't even imagine yet. Or perhaps you'll carry this mindset into whatever field you go into, always looking for that untapped potential, that opportunity to create rather than merely compete. The future is still blank space in so many ways. New frontiers are rising: artificial intelligence, space exploration, synthetic biology, and fields we don't even have names for yet. There are problems crying out for solutions and people still waiting for someone to step up with a visionary plan. 0 to 1 is a reminder that the future isn't a lottery you hope to win. It's something you can shape. As Thiel would say, it's time to reject the tyranny of chance and embrace the power of design and intention in our careers and companies. In the end, building the future requires a mix of fierce idealism and practical strategy. It asks for optimism, not the blind hope kind, but the kind of optimism that rolls up its sleeves and charts a path. It asks you to question dogmas, to not accept that just because that's how things are means that's how they must be. It asks you to value knowledge and innovation over social proof and competition. And it asks for courage, immense courage to go from 0 to 1 when 0 is all you start with. Look around you. Nearly everything we consider normal today was impossible at some point until someone made it happen. The smartphone in your pocket, the vaccine in your clinic, the electric car whirring down the street, each began as a radical idea. The world can change overnight when a true innovation emerges. Why not be the person who brings about the next change? The door to the future is wide open to those who will walk through it with original ideas and the determination to see them through. That is the enduring message of 0 to 1. As you step back into your own life after listening to this, keep that message close. There are secrets left to discover, groundbreaking companies left to build, and a future that will be shaped by those bold enough to envision a new reality. Every innovation, every 0 to 1 moment starts with an individual or a small team asking why the world can't be different, and then taking action. Who knows? The next such moment might come from you.